Welcome to the Explainer. All right, today we are going to unbox the single most complex piece of technology you will ever own, your own memory. I mean, think about it for a second. Your brain stores some information so perfectly, it just becomes automatic, right? Like you never forget how to ride a bike.
And yet, why is it that you can forget the name of someone you just met? It can be so frustrating. So what's going on in there? Let's pop the hood and take a look at the user's guide to how this whole thing works.
Okay, so here's the plan. We'll start with the basics of what memory even is. Then we'll get into how it works, kind of like its operating system. We'll look at the different file types your brain creates, figure out why we get those frustrating error messages, forgetting things, and we'll wrap up with some serious pro tips to upgrade your own system.
All right, let's dive right in. Section 1. What is memory? When we boil it all down, what are we really talking about?
So you see this definition here, and it sounds pretty straightforward. But the thing is, memory isn't just one thing. It's actually a whole process, a three-step journey that turns a real-life experience into something you can pull up later.
The easiest way to think about it is like a computer. First, you have encoding. That's like typing up a new document. You're converting what you see and hear into a format the brain can handle. Then comes storage. You hit save and file it away on your hard drive. And finally, retrieval. That's when you go find and open that file later. And here's the kicker. If any one of those stages fails, poof, the memory is gone. So, that's the basic process. But how does the brain's operating system actually juggle all that data? Well, psychologists have come up with some really cool models to try and explain it.
And one of the biggest, most influential ones is the Atkinson-Shiffrin model from way back in 1968. It gives us this awesome idea that memory isn't just one big bucket, but a flow of information that moves through different, distinct compartments.
Okay, so check this out. It all starts with sensory memory. A huge amount of raw data hits you, but it lasts for less than a second. If you actually pay attention to something, then it gets promoted to your short-term memory. Now think of this as your brain's RAM. It's your working memory, but it's tiny. It can only hold about 7 things at a time for maybe 30 seconds. To get anything into the permanent hard drive, the long-term memory, you've got to rehearse it or work with it somehow. But here's a really interesting twist. It's not just about repeating something over and over. There's another idea called the levels of processing theory, and it basically says that the deeper you think about something, the more likely you are to remember it. So shallow processing, like just noticing what a word looks like, creates a weak memory. But deep processing, where you think about the meaning and connect it to stuff you already know, that's what builds a strong, lasting memory.
Okay, so once that information makes it into long-term storage, what does it look like? What are the different file types our brain actually uses?
Yeah. It turns out memories aren't all created equal. They basically fall into 2 huge categories. You've got declarative memory, that's the what, the facts, the events, the stuff you have to consciously try to remember. And then you have non-declarative memory, that's the how, the skills that work on autopilot, completely unconsciously.
And within those 2 big systems, you have all these specific file types, like episodic memory. That's your personal diary, right? I remember my first day of school. Then there's semantic memory, your own internal Wikipedia full of facts, like Paris is the capital of France. You've got procedural memory, which is pure muscle memory for skills like typing or swimming, and then there's this really fascinating one, flashbulb memory. It's like a super vivid snapshot your brain takes when you hear shocking, emotional news.
But, as we all know too well, no system is perfect. So let's do some troubleshooting. Why do we keep getting that dreaded file not found error? In other words, why do we forget things? Well, the first person to really study forgetting scientifically was this guy, Hermann Ebbinghaus. And way back in 1885, he figured something out that every student needs to hear. Cramming for a test is actually one of the least effective ways to learn. Spacing out your practice is way, way better. He actually mapped this whole process in his famous forgetting curve. And what he found is honestly kind of shocking. It shows this incredibly steep drop-off right after you learn something. Get this, without reviewing it, you can forget half of what you learned in just 1 hour. And after a day, you might lose up to 70%. This is exactly why going back over things isn't just a good idea, it's absolutely essential to make memories stick. So the big takeaway here is that forgetting isn't just one single glitch. It can happen for a bunch of reasons. Sometimes the memory trace just fades away. The classic use it or lose it. Other times, different memories get in the way and cause interference. Sometimes the information is totally there, but you just don't have the right trigger, the right cue to find it. And of course, sometimes you didn't really save it properly in the first place. All right, now for the really good part, the pro tips and upgrades. How can we actively improve our memory's performance? Well, let's look at some super powerful science-backed techniques called mnemonics.
First up, we've got tricks that are all about organization. Chunking is a big one. This is where you group little bits of info into bigger, meaningful units. So instead of trying to remember a long string of numbers, you group them, like turning those digits into the years of World War II. Instantly easier. Or you can use the first letter technique to create acronyms, which are just perfect for remembering lists, like the colors of the rainbow.
Then there are techniques that use the power of imagery. And one of the oldest and most powerful is the method of loci, also known as a memory palace. It sounds complicated, but it's not. You just pick a place you know incredibly well, like your own house. Then you mentally place the things you need to remember in different spots along a path through your house. To recall everything, you just take a mental walk and see all the items you left there. It's an amazing retrieval tool.
So when you put it all together, it's clear that your memory isn't just some dusty old filing cabinet. It's a living, dynamic system that's constantly working. And the best part? It's trainable. Understanding how it works is the absolute first step to making it work better for you. Which leaves us with this final, kind of deep thought. If your memory isn't a perfect video recording, but more like a story, a summary, that your brain reconstructs every single time you remember something, what does that say about who you really are?